Hi guys, how are you? It's Christina here. We're just gonna give people a few minutes, or actually a few seconds. Time is money, right? So we're gonna give them a few seconds to join us. In the meantime, I just wanna say thank you for joining us in our first installment of Live with Stateside Affairs. My name, for those who I don't have the pleasure of knowing yet, is Christina Pinzon, and I'm the owner of Stateside Affairs. We are a woman and minority-owned public relations firm based out of New Jersey. We've been very busy doing a lot of COVID outreach, a lot of census outreach for our clients. We actually, this is really exciting for us right now because, and it wasn't planned, but we decided to launch the show today. On our 5th year anniversary as a business here in New Jersey. So I just want to give a quick shout out to our team who's been instrumental in the planning and execution of the show. Laura, Chris, Lisa, Matt, Sean, Mike, thank you so much. And thank you again for everyone who's tuning in. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we help out our clients with a lot of current issues that are affecting people, not only in New Jersey, but frankly, across the country. But as a former commissioner of the Elizabeth Housing Authority and having experience in government, and with the recent announcement from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs and Governor Phil Murphy with the rental assistance program, I thought it was really important to bring together a panel of experts, and again, wasn't planned, but experts, a panel of women who are very knowledgeable on the subject of housing and mental health in New Jersey. So I want you guys to start, you know, feel free to ask questions. You know, you can ask them on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're live on all those different platforms. And so let's just start and let's just run with it. The first person that we have joining us is Ann Smolin-Thielen, who works with the Collaborative Support Programs of New Jersey. She serves as the Deputy Director of Peers Outreach Coordinated Specialty Initiatives. Hey, Ann.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Also joining us is Carol St. Hilaire. She's the Chief Executive Officer for Community Enterprises Corporation, an organization whose mission is to provide safe, decent, affordable, and permanent supportive housing to low-income persons with special needs. Hey, Carol.
Hola. Good evening, everyone. Nice to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to hear. We had very interesting conversations before. So again, feel free to ask those questions. Lastly, to finalize our rock star panel of women who are going to drop some knowledge on mental health and housing is Kathy Hart. She is the Deputy Director for the Housing Authority of the City of Elizabeth. The Housing Authority is an award-winning agency that has successfully demonstrated its capacity to deliver a broad range of services ranging from social, economic, educational, and a lot of redevelopment in the city of Elizabeth. As I mentioned before, I've had the opportunity and the fortune of working with Kathy firsthand. So I know that she's 100% dedicated to her residents. She's a hands-on deputy director. And so she was just a perfect addition to this panel. So, hey, Kathy.
Hey, Christina. Thank you very much for inviting me, and congratulations on your 5-year anniversary. I don't know where that time went. It feels like just yesterday you were still on the board and supported the programs that we do, so congrats.
Thank you. I really miss you guys. I can tell you that I feel the 5 years. They're covered right now, but they're in my grace. Can't see them. So why don't we start with Anne? Why don't you, I want you to introduce yourself a little bit to the people that are watching us, so that way they can formulate their thoughts and ask some questions regarding the work that you do.
Sure. So I'm Anne Smullen-Feeling, and I work for Collaborative Support Programs of New Jersey, which is a statewide behavioral health agency. We offer a variety of services, including support services for those in housing, respite houses, and community wellness centers, among other special projects. And so as part of my role, I oversee our respite houses, which are peer-run, as well as our Hudson and Essex County Integrated Services, the Peer Advocate Program, and the Moving Forward Community Wellness Center, which are both in Middlesex County.
Cool. So I know Carol will get into it, but you guys work collaboratively here in the state, right? So Carol, what is your focus?
Yeah, so I'm Carol St. Hilaire. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Community Enterprises Corporation. We are our own 501c3. We are a subsidiary of CSPNJ. So we work very closely together. We have this healthy tension between housing, which is what CEC manages, and services, which is run out of CSP. We are a public housing agency. We are a nonprofit agency. And we manage over 200 units of supportive housing and administer a mix of vouchers, not only from the state, DCA, or the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, but also HUD and the Continuum of Care program. So again, we do property management and really ensure that individuals have access to safe, affordable, and decent housing across the state of New Jersey. And really it's a partnership between CSP and CEC.
Cool. So we can get to later about how people can find you, what are the type of resources that you have available. But in the meantime, we're going to introduce Catherine. So Catherine, why don't you let us know a little bit about you?
Sure. My name is Kathy Hart. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Housing Authority, City of Elizabeth. I have been there for 36 years, so I'm just turning 38 next week. So just, you know, anyway, I've been there a long time. So the Housing Authority has approximately 1,400 public housing units. We administer about 1,200 Section 8 vouchers, consisting of regular tenant-based, project-based, mainstream, shelter plus care, family unification, you name it, we pretty much administer that type of voucher. In addition to all the bricks and mortar and housing assistance programs, we offer an array of social and supportive service programs through 2 centralized community centers. One of the community centers we have on site at our family project named Ravlock Manor is actually a family success center. And then we have another community center located in our Elizabethport neighborhood that runs programs for both families and seniors. We are a very active agency in doing redevelopment. So it is a really a large scale, small but big family operation that moves the Housing Authority and its residents. So yeah, so that's it.
Cool. Well, you know, again, getting back to the whole purpose of this conversation, I think we can all agree that 2020 has already been a very difficult year for all of us in a lot of different ways. You know, personally, I've known people who have lost their jobs. I've known people who have contracted COVID, but the virus itself doesn't discriminate, and it really, I mean, we all know this. You know, it touches everyone in any family, regardless of your socioeconomic background. So I know that we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, public housing. We're going to talk about rental assistance, and you know, I want people to really think about like how the pandemic has affected them personally, how it's affected their families, their children. You know, Catherine, you and I have had some sidebar conversations, and we think about the children and how some of us, you know, we have access to laptops, we have access to, you know, our backyards, but not every child does. So how are you guys adapting all to this pandemic? But you know, we know that the state of New Jersey continues with this multi-stage approach to put New Jersey back on the road to recovery from COVID-19. Health and social service experts, such as yourselves, are seeing a spike in mental health cases affecting all people, like we said, of all backgrounds. And so it's been already a very stressful 2020. We don't know what to expect with 2021. And what are you seeing firsthand?
Yeah, so we've definitely seen an increase in folks seeking services. The reality is that the pandemic really created a perfect storm in terms of creating behavioral health crises. You have fear, anxiety, and uncertainty coupled with a loss of income, housing, social supports. So the social distancing and the lack of connecting with loved ones really can lead to some isolation and a loss of hope. Obviously, all of these can really be triggers for substance use and emotional distress. So currently, we're seeing a tremendous amount of need. Like you mentioned, many of the folks we see have lost jobs, and they really needed some practical items and packages to shelter, food, and other resources. So, you know, North Jersey seems to have been hit the hardest. I think most of us have, you know, seen that and heard that. So we do have community wellness centers all throughout the state. Like I mentioned, we are statewide, but, you know, particularly in our Newark and Jersey City centers, you know, we've seen the higher levels of poverty and other needs. Some of the folks we serve, you know, in inner city or just have a lot more needs than maybe in our more suburban centers. So one of our Hudson County actually linked more than 150 people to temporary shelter during COVID, as well as linking those same folks with regular care and food packages. You know, at our center in Newark, they've been averaging serving 159 folks a day via virtual support groups, outreach calls, and providing meals. So that's an increase of about 59 people per day compared to before the pandemic. And, you know, that's huge. So the community wellness centers as a whole have responded to this need with an increase in support groups for substance use challenges, mental health challenges. We've really seen a 50% increase in the number of co-occurring and substance use support groups over the past few months. And, you know, we've really also seen the increase in the need for linking folks to detoxes and rehab. So throughout most of the time, houses were closed. We did reopen them in June 8th. But, you know, pre-COVID, about 2/3 of the folks we served had substance use issues. But since the pandemic, about 90% or more are dealing with co-occurring and substance use challenges. So that's like a 25% increase. And the need is just really incredible right now.
Is it alcohol? Is it opioids?
You know, it's everything. And, you know, COVID, I think people were kind of predicting there might be a decrease in use or a decrease in overdoses because of, the lockdown and different just access to these substances, right? But we've actually seen the opposite. We've seen the number of overdoses increase across the state and across the nation. So, that's particularly due to, if you use and you have a certain person that you go to, you might not be able to access them anymore. Folks might be using, different means or different substances that they're not familiar with. So that's really, we've seen an increase across the state with that.
And I'm just curious, like, for your particular organization, have you seen an increase in a specific age bracket, or?
It seems to be kind of across the board. I mean, we do only serve individuals 18 and up. We primarily serve mostly middle-aged folks, but, at respite and in the centers, we do have younger folks as well from 18 and up. So it seems to have kind of run the gamut.
And I would just like to add just how important it is to really embrace a housing first philosophy. For our folks that are in the CEC, CSP housing, making sure that we are offering them the support virtually or even in person. My asset management guys, the property managers, have been going out and helping tenants in the units, with anything they might need, practicing social distancing and with the proper PPE. But if someone relapses, if someone is using, if someone is having a crisis, they're not getting evicted. They're not getting thrown out. Instead, it's really all hands on deck, even housing, coming to the table and saying, like, okay, what can we do? Even though this is not my realm of, authority, let's get together, have an emergency meeting, figure out what is needed to stabilize that person as quickly as possible. It could be that they need to go to a psych hospital for a few weeks or even a month. Their housing is still there when they come out. And that is just one less worry that a person has in the middle of a crisis. And I think that is, we, CSP and CEC, live and breathe the housing first model and never want to link sobriety or medication management to someone's housing.
Absolutely.
So that's a really good point. And I know, like, Kathy, you and I have talked about, how are agencies like yourselves coping with COVID? And also, you have a lot of programming that I know. You formed a lot of strategic partnerships throughout the years, a lot of nonprofits, within the county, I don't know, maybe across the state to maximize the sort of resources that you believe your residents need.
Right.
So with all of that said, and this pandemic, like, how are you, how is the housing authority staying alive, and how are you dealing with all of it?
Well, the partnerships have been very critical for our success. But to not make light of it, I will tell you that the housing authority staff, just like Carol was talking about, people were doing things that they typically wouldn't do. It was just like with Hurricane Sandy, how everybody was checking on each other. I had maintenance men, I had property managers, I had resident volunteers. Everybody was doing wellness checks on the seniors, the families, and those partnerships are very valuable to us from the other organizations, but they're limited in their reach because the reach is virtual, and they're virtual only as good as we can connect our tenants to the internet or to a laptop or to their phone. So there was ongoing outreach done by these organizations, but we all know here at this table that human contact is critical to provide reassurance, to provide the confidence for people to move on, and to, just get through their daily life. And as much as it's been helpful, I think the bigger piece is, we've got to get to a point where there is that direct contact again for people, whether we're all geared up with our PPE supplies and feel comfortable enough. So I look forward to the day that either there's a vaccine or some sort of material that can help treat in these symptoms, where we can, I don't want to say resume normal, because I don't think we'll ever go back to a normal, but resume that contact, that one-on-one. And for years, I don't want to talk too much, but for years, we've encouraged all our residents to come out, to participate, to get active, whether it's the seniors or the families. We've encouraged all these programs, and then in one fell swoop, we just pulled the rug out from under everybody. And I will share that on a personal basis, from the Housing Authority standpoint, we didn't have the infrastructure. So we went back to the old way of doing business. It was the knocking on the doors and checking on and sending flyers. And again, that's where that personal contact, you can't trade it. So I think it's important that we look at, from going forward, that the Housing Authority is definitely looking at building up our infrastructure so we can better communicate with the residents at a moment's notice.
So for any other public agency, I think this could be a learning experience for them as well. And maybe we can exchange some ideas, but how are you guys, Catherine, you just talked about, you having to adapt and shift to this virtual world now, where some things, say, for example, not everyone uses technology, so you have to knock on doors, but what are some of the other strategies that you're using to stay in touch with the people that you serve?
Well, fortunately, late last year, we partnered with T-Mobile, and they actually it's a Connect Home program through HUD, and they distributed hundreds, maybe thousands of tablets to our families. We were this spring going to give those to the seniors and do an intergenerational program and have the kids teach the seniors how to use these tablets, but that got put on the back burner because of COVID. But that access to those tablets, that access to a very reduced cost Wi-Fi service, for some families was the only link to the outside to get information for us to convey things to them and show them, hey, go here to get this. During the whole, and still ongoing, we are doing food distributions, we're doing food kits, we're doing meal programs, we're doing PPE distributions to the families. So it is knocking on the door. It is sending out alerts in these tablets. It's getting people's cell phones, sending out alerts that way, and it's knocking on doors. So there was not one piece of communication that we didn't try to make sure people knew what was going on and where they could get the services.
I'll say kudos to T-Mobile as well. We were able, through CSP, to get cell phones, flip phones at that, but with prepaid minutes on it, and distribute it, because the members that go to the wellness centers, I'd say even especially in New York and Jersey City, they don't have tablets in the emergency shelters or in the hotel motels. And I'm sure Ann can talk more about the ways that we've kind of upped our communication. But I will say, in terms of adapting to a new way of doing things, as a property manager and public housing agency as well, is doing virtual voucher briefings. So when you receive a voucher for subsidized housing, usually there's a voucher briefing once a month. Folks would come down to Freehold, which is where my staff sits, and basically go through, this is the voucher program, these are the requirements, and then they give you a voucher. During COVID, we couldn't do that. We couldn't have people come together. We couldn't transport folks from all around the state to come to Freehold. And my director of housing put together a YouTube video that was the voucher briefing. This not only allowed us to do, and also using Zoom, allowed us to do virtual voucher briefings, but also that pre-made YouTube allowed support service staff to do virtual voucher briefings with tenants across the state, so that if someone was able to get housing assistance, they were able to get their housing voucher and immediately go out and look for an apartment. HUD, I have to give kudos to HUD for the waivers they did for the continuum of care vouchers, where we are able to do virtual unit inspections, so that this isn't one more thing holding up someone that is sleeping on the street, sleeping in a shelter, sleeping in a hotel. It's not a barrier for them to access the housing. So being able to tweak those things in a more virtual way have definitely allowed us. As of today, we've done 20 voucher briefings for folks in the last about 6 weeks, which is really, really great. We had the last one in person in early March, and then stay-at-home orders started. So it really is to reduce housing barriers for the people that need it most. We primarily work with people experiencing homelessness and those with behavioral health challenges that are low income. And we know that you can't address sobriety, you can't address mental health issues if you don't have a safe place to sleep in at night. So it's just housing is so important in all of us. And COVID brought to light the social and racial inequities across the systems that I'm sure everyone
we all knew.
We all knew, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is so new," and we all knew. So I just really, I'm just so honored every day to work with the people that I do because we're really making a difference.
Yeah. So, but I do have to give a shout out to our Lieutenant Governor, Sheila Oliver, and the folks that work there. They have been so dedicated and helpful. I've worked with her in the past, through our work as a public relations company and doing work for other housing authorities and bringing light to, their issues and how, because of the restrictions that housing authorities have to endure in the past, how they become more innovative in establishing extensions of the housing authority so they don't have to rely so much on public health, public funds. So I do want people to know that you guys are actually have been very innovative in your thinking and your attempt to be resilience, as agencies. But Anne, I know that you've told me that you work with mostly parents and educators, not only parents and educators, but how have you had to adapt by connecting with them?
Sure. So I think COVID really showed us that we needed to be flexible and constantly changing our approach. I mean, the situation is still so fluid. We really need to be proactive and innovative in meeting people where they're at. So the situation has really pushed us to use virtual supports, like Carol and Catherine mentioned, in ways that we hadn't thought of before. Particularly for respite, let's say. Traditionally, respite, it's a pure run alternative to hospitalization. So folks come and stay at our respite houses for up to 10 days instead of going to the hospital if they're in crisis or emotional distress. So once the stay-at-home order became in effect, we did have to close those. Obviously, there is still a tremendous need for respite services or intensive outreach services for people who were in distress. Obviously, this pandemic has been extremely stressful. So, we had to tweak our services. So we created intensive outreach services, which provides all the same services and supports that a traditional in-house respite stay would offer, but over the phone and virtually. Similarly with the community wellness centers. So CSP&J has 23 peer-run community wellness centers across the state, and that includes 3 the state psychiatric hospitals. So by nature, the community wellness centers were places where people would come and gather in groups indoors. Clearly, we had to change that as well. So it was really about rethinking our services and supports. We were pretty quick to create some virtual support groups, asking the membership, what are their needs? Like, what do you guys want to see from our services? Also, just providing those outreach calls, those are crucial, especially for people who've been isolated. Calling them, what kind of supports, what kind of linkages can we offer you? Helping them to get those phones that you both mentioned, helping them to get connected with other supports and services. Obviously, food was an issue, right? Getting them care packages, getting their food distribution. The centers were really instrumental in providing those tangible supports too. So at this point, I think we should probably own stock in Zoom, just the amount of groups that we offer, but it's the need is there, and I think we've risen to the occasion. We're going to continue to do that. CSP&J is a peer-led agency, so really what sets us apart is have an understanding and experience of knowing what it's like to deal with mental health or substance challenges. So we're right there in the trenches with folks.
Great. Now, actually, and how does one apply for those services? And do they need insurance?
Sure. So that's the great thing. No one needs insurance for any of our services, and there are no costs to the person seeking services. So for the respite houses, which, like I mentioned, have reopened, interested individuals simply call the phone number. It's on our website. I'm sure you guys can link to that later. And they just simply call and start the intake right over the phone. They can, of course, welcome to ask any questions they might have. Similarly, the centers are not open as of yet. They are on a limited basis providing some supports in person by appointment only. That would have like linkages to birth certificates, IDs, that sort of thing. But same thing, they simply call. We have all of the center calendars online. So anyone can go on our website, type in, their zip code, and be linked to the nearest community wellness center. All the contact information is on there, as well as the calendar of support groups that they provide.
Great. Now, Catherine, I just quickly want to go back to you. You deal with a lot of seniors, you deal with working families, and you deal with children. I want to hear like some personal anecdotes, and you shared some that have been hard for you to make, some hard decisions, but you've had to, in the best interest of the families and the children that you serve. I know that you've had to, you're now running on some reduced programming, and you've had to, simple things that we take for simple, but having a basketball court at your housing complex that the kids can't use anymore.
Right.
So I did want to make a point, and that's what I was going to ask, and we can all kind of chime in on, I don't want to forget the children in this. We're talking about reopening schools, which is great, as long as, we can keep them healthy, and we don't know that. But what are we doing in the meantime? You take a kid that they're used to socializing on a daily basis, at least for like minimum 8 hours at a school with their friends, with their teachers, to zero, So what are some of the challenges, and do you have any short stories that you can share with us from your neck of the woods?
Is it me?
Yeah, and then Carol and whoever else.
Okay. So it's been, quite an experience. I know we all keep talking about it. So to have these kids out and about, normal activities, school, meals, coming home, playing it on the playgrounds that we have, to literally no school, no access to the meals or limited access to those school lunches. And then one of the hardest things, I held off as long as I could, was taking down the basketball hoops, because for my kids, got playgrounds, and those basketball hoops serve as centerpieces to a lot of my courtyards. And whether you're 5 or you're 25, those courts were a big meeting place for activities. So I was heartbroken to take those hoops down, because that meant something to everybody. And it almost was like when the folks saw that come down, they knew that we were in trouble, knew we were in business. And I will share with you that most of our residents took the warnings very seriously. And as a result, I don't even want to jinx it, but we've been pretty good. We've had some pretty positive outcomes, which was frightening for, I think, all of us in this industry to see. At the beginning, we didn't know where we were going to go. And I worry about the kids in particular, because not only food, but these are small apartments, public housing. They're not big units. Some have air conditioners, some don't. The air quality in these isn't what I would like it to be, but these units are 50 and 60 and 70 years of age. So we normally have summer camps for the kids. Well, we're looking at doing things, but not every day. And it can't be, for an extended period of time. And then we're trying to keep the kids out and only do small groups. But these kids, they're going to need so much between, we were able to get the food, which was, we were very thankful. We had access to the food bank and to USDA had food kits. Every week we were distributing over 500 lunches. To be honest with you, I've lost count, but it's in excess of 12,000 meals we supplied during this period for both families and seniors. But these kids, to get back this time, some don't have TVs, some don't have those laptops. So there is such a limited resources for them to really keep their brains going in a positive way. So we, as an agency, are trying to come up with things that are acknowledging the safety precautions, but while getting our kids active and doing things. Because, we may be okay right now, but maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, we're going to see these kids struggling. And because they are going to have the anxiety, they're going to have fear, and they're going to wonder what's the next turn around the corner safe to take. So I think, school in the fall is going to be a frightening experience, not only for the parents, but for the kids as well.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to read this. So I know that the CDC predicted that the country will only meet 65% of the demand for child psychiatrists this year. That's a CDC. So that's a scary thought.
Yep.
What about you, Carol?
So property. Oh, there's some feedback. Our properties are smaller, but it is shared housing. We have HUD 811s across the state, and we were terrified at the beginning of this that we were going to have COVID spreading in all the houses, and we were so lucky that it did not. Our tenants really were practicing social distancing. But it was obviously a challenge. We wish that we could have everyone in their own separate house with outdoor space, without that sort of cross-contamination. But we really did the best we could. I have to say kudos to my asset management staff. They have done amazing work, making sure that the tenants have what they need, making repairs, putting themselves in danger, because in order to, fix a broken toilet or a leaky faucet, they had to go inside of all of the homes. And they were really a connection to the tenants that they helped with that isolation, because they have these relationships with the tenants. They talk about recovery and sobriety, and they're really a connection back to the agency and to services. So I really have to say that I keep repeating it, but it was all hands on deck and making sure that people had what they needed, that they had toilet paper, they had paper towels, when some of us didn't even have those things because they were getting, taken out at all of the stores. And local government, other nonprofits like the Supportive Housing Association of New Jersey, SHA, they were, any PPE that they were able to get, they were always sending us emails. And really, I have to say the state came together so well to make sure that everyone was taken care of, especially our, most vulnerable, our seniors. We have so many people that have been with us for, 20, 30 years in our housing and have been aging in place. How can we help them and make sure that they weren't put at any risk? So, knock on wood, we haven't had any outbreaks, but fingers crossed.
I just have a quick question coming from Facebook. How can I get help for someone who is suffering a mental health crisis during this pandemic? Is there anything that can be done to help them from home?
Yeah, if I can answer that. So like I mentioned earlier, the respite houses are still offering intensive outreach services. So for individuals who might not be able to come and do a stay with us, they are able to call the phone line and get some support at home. So they would work with staff to create a wellness plan, which would address their crisis. And staff would talk with them for the day, at least, to address that crisis. Again, there's no cost for the services. They simply call the phone number to get started. If people were able to come and do a respite stay, that's also an option. There's always the ability to check out our website, see what type of support groups might be helpful in the meantime. But yeah, again, just calling the respite for intensive outreach, that's exactly what the staff there are trying to do, is support people through their crises.
Cool. Thank you. We just a few minutes ago, we had the opportunity to talk to Lynn Patton with, she's a HUD regional director for New York and New Jersey. And we were talking about some of the resources that they've provided for agencies like yourselves across the state of New Jersey and to New York. And she really echoed a lot of what you said. She believe that the leadership here in the state, they were very forward thinking, they were very aggressive. But I want to hear directly from you guys again, so this can be sharing experience to other public agencies, other stakeholders that are listening. You know, what are some of the funding resources that you receive? I know that it may be competing, but hopefully, you know, we can all get a piece of the pie. And then I want to talk about the rental assistance program that was formally announced yesterday. So, Kathy, you want to take a stab at that?
The HUD was very proactive, almost immediately, which, you know, that's nice to see. So after a long time. So there was CARES Act funding that came through relatively quickly, and that CARES Act money really has made a difference between the agencies, housing agencies, being able to afford to put in measures, whether they're COVID protections or supply PPE kits, or to increase staffing, or just to make up the difference between what our existing operating budget is and any other shortfalls we may be having. So the CARES Act funding, as well as there was FEMA money that was made available to agencies, just had to apply for that FEMA money. And I think those resources have been, you know, tremendous helps for the Housing Authority in just stabilizing it, so that monies that have already been allocated to, whether it's improvements or trainings or resident service programs, didn't really have to be severely blighted, so that we could utilize this additional money to pay for, like I said, the COVID supplies, the cleaning supplies, the partitions, the laptops, and all the different types of things that we needed to get access to. People could work from home. And that's ongoing. So that's still a moving target, those expenses, because, you know, we're still doing a lot of these things now. The cleaning of the facilities, the sanitizing the facilities, those things are still going on, and they're extremely costly. So without that influx of money, we would have been really sitting in a very different position today, that's for sure. So.
I just want to ask you a quick question, and this could be to any one of you, maybe Carol. What about people that don't have transportation to get tested?
So I think we could actually talk more about any transportation. So normally because we are statewide, we would do things like Lyft and Ubers if anyone needed to get anywhere. Each municipality is managing testing a little differently. Like I personally live in Jersey City, where you up to, I think last week, are able to just walk up to the testing. Not sure, and in other parts of the state, what we're doing.
Yeah, so it really varies by region or area. Typically the community wellness centers, like we mentioned, there are 23 all across the state. They have been helping folks with answering those types of questions. Where do I go? With transportation, it would really depend on, you know, case by case, but we would want to make every attempt to get them there, even like you mentioned, possibly Lyft or Uber, if that made sense.
Well, I don't know if we addressed this question. Leona asked, will the wellness reopen this year? Will it be shut down 2021?
I think she's referring to the community wellness centers. And at this time, I think it's really too early to say. We, of course, want to open sooner rather than later, but we need to do that in the safest way possible. I know that community wellness centers are working on, having some outdoor groups where we can safely social distance, but still, meet in a safe way. So more to come on that. And that's really going to be, again, region specific because we are statewide, but I'll be sure to get her more information.
I have another question from Letitia. How has COVID changed the way we look at the type of housing we build? For example, townhouses with a yard versus multi-unit buildings as options for rentals.
So I will say our housing is small houses that are like 3 or 4 unit, so bedrooms within a house for the shared housing. There is outdoor space, which is a luxury that nowadays, you see folks in their tiny apartments in Manhattan or even in Jersey City and Newark, and it really is a privilege. So our houses are, a few years old, even a few decades old, and that's what we were able to build. I think each region of the state is very different. I will say personally, just because of my experience is more in northern New Jersey, it's very expensive to build, and to have that type of land, I would love to see opportunity where we could work with the state or the federal government to build, more housing that has outdoor space. That would be wonderful.
And to that point as well, when we build affordable housing, we try to put in as many amenities as we can. But usually the funding resources that rely on are very prescriptive, and they tell us what we can and can't have. So when you're in this world of affordable housing, a yard is really a luxury, but if it comes between the yard and something that is critical need, then the state say you can't have that, but you need to have one of these. And it could be a community room. It could be, I can't even think at this point, but it isn't just what we want to build. It is very prescriptive based upon the funding resources that we have access to. So just keep that in mind.
If anyone has any really rich donors that want to give us money to develop housing and outdoor space, hit me up, tap me up.
Yeah.
I
think that's a really great idea. Cool.
Federal and state money comes with a lot of strings and a lot of restrictions, and but we have to do with what we got. But I will say, not to just complain, and to piggyback on what Kathy was saying, the additional money that HUD has given us for the PHAs has been just really great. And even how proactive they were with the waivers for that continuum of care programming, which the COC continuum of care, if folks don't know, is funding for people experiencing homelessness. So really, these waivers allowed us to remove all of the red tape, not all of it, but most of the red tape that folks were kind of stuck in to get from sleeping on the street, a shelter, a motel, to get into an apartment of their own. So really, it's been very helpful, and I think we're all doing the best we can given the situation.
So that's a good segue to the rental assistance program that we earlier touched on. I'll ask Laura if she could put up the screen, but if maybe Carol or Catherine, you guys want to quickly go through like what that's about and the type of assistance that the state is providing to residents right now through, I believe it's July 17th.
So the application process is through July 17th. And I think the disclaimer that should, apply if you can, it's online. And then the disclaimer that I've already heard folks at DCA saying is that we know that there isn't enough money to help everyone. So just because you apply, it doesn't mean that you're going to receive it, unfortunately. I think that's usually the way it goes. But I'm really glad that this money is being made available. And it's one application per household that's going to be accepted. Not sure, Kathy, if you want to add anything else.
I believe it to be a lottery system, so I think it's critical to stress to people to make sure you get your application in, because you have just as much a chance as the guy next to you to get that application in and processed. So it is temporary rental assistance, but again, without having a crystal ball and seeing where we are in the future, I think the state and I think the feds will be looking at extending programming beyond what we're seeing right now, because they just have to. They just have to, because otherwise the economy will be in even worse straits, and there will be an influx of homeless people that we've never seen before in our lifetime. So I think, there's a lot of things go into play here with people getting back on their feet, getting jobs, and being able to pay their rent. But this is definitely a good faith effort and a stopgap measure that hopefully will help keep a roof over some people's heads for a while.
And again, like with any sort of public money, there are requirements. There are income requirements. You have to be a New Jersey resident, have a valid lease, not just I'm staying in in an extra room my cousin has. And the rent has to be current as of March of 2020. So it's sort of, you need this rental assistance, this rent relief because of COVID. And like Kathy said, there's a lottery system. So, make sure that you sort of fit within the criteria that they've set forth, and apply as soon as possible. And, good luck.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that the application, there will be no paper application. So you have to.
If someone needs a reasonable accommodation, you can call the number and they'll either translation services, or if you need to do a paper application, but they're really trying to do everything online.
Perfect. I don't know if you guys, this is, we all have personal conversations that we have with our friends and family members. And I always think to myself, I'm like, we have that much money to give out, but why is there homelessness then? Why does homelessness exist? I'll leave it at that. Yeah. So, do you guys have any last comments or questions for, any one of us? I know after this live stream, we're going to exchange each other's information, and hopefully we can collaborate and, maximize our resources to help the people of New Jersey, because that's specifically who we're talking about right now. But I don't know if you have any parting words.
I just thank you again for having us. Congratulations on your 5th anniversary. It's funny, it's actually the Held in Respite's 6th anniversary of helping folks. So just to get kudos to the staff and everyone who's been helping and pitching in during this crazy time that we're in. So thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah, I would say thank you so much for having us and having this really important and sometimes difficult conversation. I think sometimes I think about homelessness all the time, because this is, not only my job, but my passion. And I think for some people, unless it's impacting them personally, or someone they know, they don't really think about it. And I think, for our elected officials or community boards across the state, when you see someone trying to develop an affordable housing project, and maybe there might be a homeless set aside, let's not automatically say, no, we don't want those people in our neighborhoods. And NIMBYism, not in my backyard, is really a big barrier to developing more housing. Obviously, we need more money and more resources, but sometimes we have the ability to do something and then we get community pushback. So keep an open mind that whenever these projects come about, it's to really help the people that need it most.
I just want to say, without getting political, I really respect, kudos to our governor and the leadership, and locally our mayor. I think they've done a tremendous job. The leadership that's been exemplified, we're from Jersey and people make fun of us all the time, and our numbers were horrible, even though we were the worst state out there for a while. But how we handle ourselves, how we look out for one another, I don't think you can trade, you can take any other state. I think Jersey comes together time in and time again at a moment's, when there's a crisis, and we all pitch in to help each other. So I think kudos to all of you guys, especially too, for what you're doing. And yeah, so go Jersey.
And go ladies. And thank you to Michael Coyle. He says collaboration, that's what it's all about. It's key. I agree with him. I think that instead of competing with each other, we should find ways to work together. With that said, I want to say thank you to each of you for joining us in our very first installment of Live with Stateside Affairs. I think it went well. The video or the interview that we have with Lynn Payton, again, the HUD Regional Director for New York, New Jersey, we will post at a later time, either today or tomorrow. So that way, please feel free to share widely and to share with networks. There's a lot of useful information that she shared in terms of like resources. And then I want to remind folks that, we'll be sticking to this type of programming every Tuesday. We started with New Jersey because it's in our own backyard. We are a firm based in New Jersey, but we will be talking about national and international issues. And we're going to try to get as creative as possible. Again, we are a PR company, but this is now a creative outlet for us, and it allows us also to help disseminate a lot of important information that we get to work on the back end. So again, thank you. Check out our website. It's statesideaffairs.com. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and we're on LinkedIn as well. And I'm thinking if I'm missing anything, I don't think so, but shout out to Yvette Baez. Thank you for tuning in. We have Carrie Amaro. And before I forget, because I do see, again, Catherine, you said, without getting political, I won't. But the thing that I will say is it is 7 o'clock. So hopefully you've already voted. And if you haven't, if you can still go out to vote, some of the polling stations are going to be open till 8 o'clock. We do government and some political affairs work, so I just had to put that. So thanks, ladies. Thank you to everyone who joined. I really, really appreciate it.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.